Alright, so let's start looking at what we call the depth of field, or the DOF. So we're going to go into our camera and into our camera options. Now, you'll see this in every single film you've ever watched. It's just the camera operator's job to make sure that the main content is in focus, and that's the depth of field. So first of all, we need to turn it on. We've got our depth of field here. We just slide it across, bang, it's on. Now we haven't noticed much change, and I'm going to go to one view so we know what we're looking at. Get my hand, slide up, and let's have a scrub. Yeah, nothing's really changed. I have moved my titles, but other than that, no real depth of field. So what we need to do is to change the focus distance. Going to select and drag and change it. Now what this is doing, and I'm just going to bring it down to 0 to give you an example, is that has now put the focus at 0 pixels. What that means is it's very close and we've blurred out absolutely everything in front of us. The further up we go, the more of the image we get to see. Now the focus distance means that this is the distance of pixels from where the camera is to where the camera is focusing. So what that means is as I scroll up, you can see that images that are closer start to come into focus, and ones that are further away are still blurry until I go up further and further. As we can see now, the mountains here are still a bit blurry, but as I scroll up, they've come into focus. And this can make our camera look very realistic indeed. Of course, we can change the blur level and change the aperture as well, but let's not get too complicated. All we want to do is have our mountains out of focus and our foreground in focus. So I'm just going to zoom out. There we are. Move around. Excellent. And let's have a scroll now. So as we can see, space is in focus, our planet, stars and mountains are out of focus. Great. Now what I'm also going to add is what we call a vignette. And what this is a darkening around the edges and makes it look quite cinematic. In order to do that, and it's going to be one of the top layers here, I'm going to go to Layer, New, I'm going to go to Solid, and I want this to be a black solid. We'll call it Vignette, French word. And right now we've just blanked everything out. So then I'm going to go to my square tool up here, go to the ellipse tool, click and drag, position, going to position that by hitting the selection tool. Having a bit of trouble here. Let's try again. We've got this one here, and we're going to position it. Now we're having trouble, so all we're going to do is select that solo layer. Rather, I'm going to lock everything else out. Okay, so back to our vignette. Now when I move it, we're all good. And if you're wondering how I did that so quickly, all I do is click and drag down, and then that will do a multiple selection. Okay, so just with our vignette here, I want to invert that, like so. And I also want to make sure that it covers the whole screen. Oops. Like so. And I'm going to put a feather on it too. So open the mask controls, find our feather. There we are. And if you find it's a bit too dark, we can also change the opacity of it too. So right now, it's looking pretty cool. Maybe a bit too dark, so I'm going to go to the mask opacity and just lighten it up a little bit. Okay, so now I'm going to click and drag all the way down, unlocked all my layers, and what we're going to do next is an overall color correction. So just above our foreground, in between the vignette and the foreground, I'm going to make a new adjustment layer. And this is basically like putting a lens on a camera. So you can put any effects on this layer itself and it will blanket cover everything else on top here. You could individually put effects on individual layers, but as I just said, this one will cover everything underneath it. So I'm going to go to Effect, Color Correction, I'm going to go to Curves and make it a bit brighter, like so, and then Effect, Color Correction, Hue and Saturation, just there, and we can change our colors quite drastically. That looks pretty cool, very spacey, a bit too saturated. There we go, looking good. Almost very 80s. Alright, and I still think that this mountain here could be a bit more blurred. So I'm going to go down to that camera again. Here we are, our camera options, and play with that depth of field. So if I bring up the aperture, it's going to blur it more, and if I peel back the focus distance, we can see that it actually starts to move here. See our focus there? The closer we get to our images, the more it comes into focus. There we go, nice and blurred. And space, bang, still in focus. As this is space right here, and it's right in front of the camera. Fantastic. So let's make this nice and big, have a bit of a preview. Might bring this bar down a bit, and let's hit space. And because there's a lot of information now that the program has to render out, it's going to take quite some time. Adding the depth of field does make it very resource heavy. It's a lot of information that the computer has to progress. So we'll just do 2 seconds there. Hit space again, scroll back, and there we go. Alright, I hope this has made nice and easy for you to understand, guys. And don't forget, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to email me, and I'll be more than happy to help you guys out. Alright, we'll see you next time.